Many times clients will come in and ask me what type of insurance should they have. Typically it's after an automobile accident, so I'm inquiring about their insurance because first of all, in order to bring a case or a claim for your injuries, you're going to have to show that you actually had liability insurance. Liability insurance is what we all know about. It covers you if you're at fault, and typically most insurance companies write different types of policies with different coverages. The liability covers you if you're at fault, but oftentimes when you're in an accident, the person who's at fault may only have a small insurance policy, perhaps a 15, 30, 25 policy. And what that means is the 15,000 covers the first 15,000 of damages for any one person. 30,000 is an aggregate of people. So if you have 4 people injured, then theoretically the 30,000 would cover all of those expenses. And then the back part of that, which is 25,000, is covering like the property damage. So if you have a kid, for instance, who's 16 and just started driving, and you only have a 15, 30, 25 policy, and your kid is at fault and totals out a $50,000 Mercedes, then you really don't have enough coverage to cover the property damage that your child caused. So you better, if you can, get as much coverage as you can. And that brings me to a second part of that, which is when you're involved in an accident and you have medical bills and you have broken bones, bad injuries of some sort, you want to make sure there's enough coverage, because most of the time people who hit you, unless it's a big company with a big policy, they're gonna have a 15-30 policy. So when you're taking out your own insurance, you may want to consider what's called uninsured motorist coverage. A lot of times agents won't tell you about it, but you're going to have uninsured motorists unless you reject it. If you reject it, you have to sign a form to reject that sort of coverage. And the reason uninsured motorists is important is, let's say you have 50,000 worth of medical bills and the person who hits you only has a $15,000 policy. If you have 100,000 in uninsured motorist coverage, then your uninsured motorist coverage is going to pay 35,000 towards your medical bills that the 15,000 didn't pay for the person who hit you. So it's good to have that extra security. Obviously it's going to cost you some, but I believe as an attorney that the cost, based on the fact that there are so many underinsured or uninsured drivers in Louisiana, that the cost you pay for underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage far outweighs the benefits you get far outweigh the cost. Let's put it that way. In addition, you may want to purchase MedPay. MedPay is very cheap. It covers medical bills no matter who's at fault, but it'll cover your medical bills. Even if you have health insurance, it'll pay deductibles and those sorts of things. Using uninsured motorist coverage, if you're not at fault, does not make your premiums go up. If you're not at fault, an insurance company cannot raise your premiums. If they do, they're breaking the Louisiana Insurance Code law by doing that. So when you buy these types of coverages like collision, comprehensive, rental insurance, use them because you're paying for them. And oftentimes when you're in an accident, you can get your own insurance to do things much quicker than you can from a person who's at fault, because the at fault driver, typically their insurance is not going to pick up your claim until they've spoken to that person. So you're at the mercy of how long it takes the other person's insurance company to get moving, whereas your own insurance company will pay for some of these claims, and then they become what's called subrogated. They step into your shoes to pick up their money against the at-fault driver, but in the meanwhile, you don't have the headache of going through waiting to get a car rental and that sort of thing, because your company, because you've purchased that insurance, actually pays for it. So in my opinion, one thing you want to do, get collision comprehensive if you have it, get as much coverage as you think you can afford to get, and get underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage. Don't just get economic only. That's another part of that, but you want true underinsured or uninsured, not just economic only. A lot of times people ask the question, when are they responsible for someone else and somebody else's bad driving or someone else's fault? If you have a child who's under 18 years old and lives in your house, you're going to be responsible if they're in a wreck and at fault. So again, you want to consider how much insurance coverage you have, because as parents, we're responsible for what our children do until they reach 18. Now, when a child is beyond 18, even if they're on or in your vehicle, you're not going to be responsible for his fault unless you turn over the vehicle to him. For instance, if you know they're intoxicated or on drugs and you give the keys to somebody, then you would be at fault. That's called negligent entrustment. But most of the time, you need to make sure that your coverage is going to cover your children, and it does cover your children as a relative living in the household, but you want to make sure that you protect your assets. So make sure you talk to your agent about getting enough coverage in case you and or one of your children are at fault. Under Louisiana law, when you have a permit, you're automatically insured by the insurance company. Of course, you need to let them know. One thing I would tell parents whose children are about to start driving, make sure they go through driver's ed. You'll get a discount on your insurance. Recently, too, I found out that if you go on a website, it's a Louisiana website, and you can take a test. It costs $29, and you, your child, or whomever in your family can do it, and it will actually, with a lot of insurance companies, provide up to a 20% discount on your insurance. I actually did it myself because my children are at school, so I knew they weren't going to take care of that, so I did it on my own, and next thing I knew, the bill I'd gotten for insurance had been reduced by 20%. So I would definitely advise you to look into that. You are going to be responsible for your children, so the best thing to do is try and get those insurance premiums down as much as you can, and you can do that by having them go through driver's ed, having them try to make good grades if they can, and that will always help you reduce your insurance premiums. So, question your agent about it, and if you have any questions, you can always call my office and I can explain those things better for you.